Today, I'm super excited to invite the host of the podcast for the Long Run podcast and just all around fantastic guy, Jonathan Levitt, to the show. Jonathan, how you doing?
Cody, I'm good. We were just talking that my back seized up yesterday and I couldn't run, so I'm taking 2 days off of running, but besides for that, doing good.
That's good. I like to hear that. You've been a busy man, so I think that maybe the body's telling you need a couple days rest. You just took on a huge project, the sub 5 minute miler, right? Were in Leadville before that, or just recently, and before that, you were at Western States. You are a man everywhere right now. But I do definitely want to jump on the 5 minute miler first. That documentary you dropped, and if you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. It is freaking awesome. Gave me chills, made me want to go after the 5 minute miler as well. How did that day go? What shoe were you wearing? Just let the people know what happened.
Yeah, so the day went interestingly. I was wearing the Puma Fast Forward, which is a very aggressive track or speed shoe. So it's got a pretty rigid plate, and it looks like the toe box is chopped off. So you're literally like, I don't know if we're doing video here or not, but you're pretty like 45-degree angle from toes being flat on the ground and foot being up in the air. How did the race go? We went out really hot. The first lap was 69 seconds. It should have been 78. And that was 69 for the 409 because it was a waterfall start. So a little bit more than the full lap. It was really fast. I wasn't looking at my watch. I was just following the pacer whose watch hadn't started. He still nailed a 4:59. Just a bit of an unconventional way to get there. So I followed him for the first lap and a half, and I was like, this is really, really hard. Like, why is it this hard? And I was like pretty cooked by 800 in. And the third lap was probably the most discomfort I've ever been in, potentially. And it's so weird because like I've run 10 marathons, I've done 3 ultras, I did rim to rim to rim in the Grand Canyon, took almost 13 hours to go 42 miles with 11,000 feet of gain. And this was the most pain I've ever been in. And it only took like 3 minutes to get there. And so we ran at altitude. Sarah Vaughn told me that the burning starts earlier at altitude. And for me, the burning hit like within the first lap. I was expecting like 2.5 in to start feeling that burn. And it was just like, maybe it's because we went out fast or whatever, but everything was burning immediately. And so it was really interesting because my podcast For the Long Run sponsored the race, and specifically, well, we sponsored the pro race and contributed cash to that prize, but we also had our own mile. So it was the For the Long Run, For the Short Run mile, in the quest of breaking 5. So we had 5 or 6 people in that heat. And a bunch of my friends were there, my coach and his wife, David and Megan, and their son, Leo. They were all there. So I had like 30 friends at this race. And here I was like at risk of being last in my own concoction. And so the third lap comes around and I'm like, oh my God, just don't make it embarrassing. So I turned up the dial on the last lap and just absolutely emptied the tank. And I've had so few experiences that I've dug that deep. The last time I dug that deep was marathon when I broke 3. And the last 3 miles of that were like similar, like scraping the bottom of the well type thing. But the pain was not as acute and pronounced across a marathon as it is in a 5-minute endeavor. So I ran 5:22. I collapsed at the end of the race, and my watch said it triggered an accident alert and tried to like call my dad because I went from 14 miles an hour to 0
Yeah.
immediately like
Yeah.
that. And so like in a normal scenario, like that's a you're on a bike and then you get hit by a car and then you go from 14 to 0. And so that's what I thought happened. And so I was like, I had crossed the line. I was laying on the ground. My girlfriend Kate was like right over me. I was like, what the hell is going on in my watch? Oh my God, stop, stop, stop. Um, so then the next week I ran a mile in Boston. My friend McKenna paced me. She was on a bike and we ran on the Boston Marathon course. In that big sweeping section, it's like mile 18 or 18 into 19, through Newton, basically to City Hall. And I ran 5 flat, like 5:00.9 with a left turn just before the Johnny Kelly Hill, where I ducked under a bunch of trees and it wasn't a great place to kick. So it was really cool to put forth a block
Yep.
like that with that kind of speed, because I haven't run that fast consistently since 2014 when I trained for a 5K. And that was 8 years ago. And so,
In a minute.
yeah, it's been a minute. And when I started, when I started doing this training, I did about 6 weeks of like proper training for the mile after being at Western States and running Broken Arrow. At first, so normally with David, I do effort based workouts, but for this one, it was pace based. So like I had to hit a pace, so I had to get comfortable running that pace. So we started out with some intervals, like normal 10K work on Tuesdays, down to 5K work, and then Thursdays would be 6 or 8 by 30 seconds at mile pace. And so the first 6 by 30 second at mile pace was sprinting, like very much so sprinting. And it was super cool over that next month period that it went from a sprint to just below sprint. But like even in the week leading up to it, I did mile work and it still felt like almost sprinting.
Yeah.
Um, it's just so fast.
It is, and I don't know how you do that. Like, I honestly do. Like, we talked offline and everything that I remember you did that, and we both joked because I did a 5K recently and I just broke 19 minutes, which I thought I would never do, which was, and I got through that finish line similar to you. My wife was joking because she was like, it looked like you were just going to pass out or throw up on the sideline. There was no smile, there was no cheer. You stopped your watch, and she was like, I wasn't sure what to do next. So, I mean, going that shorter distance and going hard hurts so bad. I did a
Totally.
50K up in Cayuga and I finished that smiling, giving high fives. This one, I just wanted to go find a corner and just lay down. So taking on the 5 minute miler, that's like I said, coming from more distance, your marathons. I mean, that's a whole different other training. And not only that, but the weight training you have to do for that. I mean, did you add anything besides running and the sprints? Did you add anything to build up the legs as well for this, or just
Yeah, I was doing deadlifts, and a bunch of like speed legs from the swap routine as well. So like a 5 minute routine with body weight and kettlebells and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I've been doing that pretty consistently for the last couple of years. But the high end work was interesting. And so I'm used to running like 60 miles a week in marathon training or ultra training. And so with this, I was doing like 50 miles a week, 45, 50 miles a week, and 2 workouts plus a long run. The long run was 12 miles. So normally I'm like 14, 16. So it was interesting because every time I was up for a workout, my legs would be fresh and then they'd be wrecked and then they'd be fresh and then they'd be wrecked. So is this like I was doing 2.5, 3 hard efforts a week. So I was often doing like 20 minutes at threshold in those 12 milers. So like 12 miles in 90 minutes with 20 minutes hard in the middle. It was pretty interesting and I improved a lot and I improved quickly. So there's a lesson in there. I think that like the super high volume isn't necessary. And maybe like if you're listening to this and you're looking at, you don't have a coach, maybe think about doing something like that in the off season, and much lower volume, but work on that turnover in a time when you can afford the that cycle of fresh legs, trash legs, fresh legs, trash legs, where like the work doesn't need to be as high, the intensity, the volume doesn't need to be as high, but you're still hitting 6 by 2 minutes on Tuesday, and 8 by 30 seconds on Thursday, and Saturday is 10-12 miles with 20 minutes at tempo. That kind of structure is pretty low risk. Well, I don't know that mile effort is low risk, but lower risk than these big heroic efforts that we often see people doing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I spend some winter time doing that. So winter times here in Pennsylvania, pretty snowy. So sometimes I'll do treadmill runs, and I spend most this last winter, I spent a lot of time on speed work, my turnover, getting used to faster paces, which is something I have the ability, but I haven't really pushed the limits. So this winter, I really focused on strength training, that speed work, and I came out of this past season, I did a 50K, paced the buddy at 100 miler, now 5K, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like I came out of the gates with fresh legs. I felt fast because I wasn't putting so much wear and tear on my legs. So by the time I did get to my training for my 50K, like I was good to go and I felt fast, and put spots on an ultra where you can let it rip. I was able to let it rip. So I definitely think there is something to that when you can bring the volume down, add in some of those speed works, and just really focus on form and pace, things like that. I mean, it is huge. Now, a question for you, because you are one of the swap team members. When you called David or Megan, whoever is your specific coach, and you said, "Hey guys, I want to go for a sub 5 minute mile," like what did they say to you? Like, because David is one of the nicest guys, same with Megan, but I gotta imagine they were like, "What?"
Let me see if I can find. I think I'm pretty sure I put it in. It wasn't in the log initially. We talked about it in person. Yeah, it was over the phone, and we were having a call, and I was like, "What do you think about attempting to break 5 at the end of July?" And this was like mid June or early June, and he like paused for a second. He did some thinking. He's like, yeah, we can do that. That sounds fun. And so he wouldn't have said yes if he didn't think I could do it. And because he said like when I was living in Boston, I wanted to do the 50K at Broken Arrow. He's like, why don't we pick something that you can realistically train for? I couldn't realistically train for a 50K and have it go decent while living in Boston, at least something like Broken Arrow. So I knew that when he said that it was possible, even though I didn't really feel like it was. And so we did this film project with Puma around the race, and originally it was going to be all about breaking 5 in the mile. What we quickly realized is that it's pretty, out of reality, or not a realistic goal for a lot of people. So it's not super relatable. And so we pivoted to the conversation around why do we do hard things? And when I ran rim to rim to rim, my initial thought was to run rim to rim. And so when my buddy Tony, who ended up producing this video, was asking us to fill out in this Google Doc of what we were going to do, whether the rim to rim or rim to rim to rim, I was like, well, I'm pretty sure I could do rim to rim today, but I don't think I could do rim to rim today. So I'm gonna do that and train for that. And so this felt very similar to that, in that on the day I commit to it, I could not have run sub 5. I still haven't formally run sub 5, but I ran 5:00.
Damn close.
5:00 with a finish in traffic. And Dave was like, yeah, that's better than 4:59 anyway. So for all intents and purposes, like I've run 5. And in that pursuit of the 5-minute mile, it became like I had a lot of these conversations around why do we do hard things. And in that video, we spoke with Sarah Vaughn, Jenny Simpson, and a local runner named Flannery Davis Love. And Flannery is a psychotherapist, and a guy named Trent Mack, who has a very funny story. Watch the video. Flannery is a psychotherapist who's run 100 miles a couple of times. Her husband's a big ultra runner as well. And we had a fascinating conversation around like, what is the point of all of this and why do we do it? And right. So my podcast is about exploring the why and understanding like what happens when things get hard. How do we learn from people who have performed, excellently, very well? And what can we learn from that? And so it evolved into this discussion around like, okay, we're running 4 laps around a track as hard as we possibly can. It's incredibly painful. What's the point? Right.
Yeah.
Also, like when I'm doing that 3rd lap and I'm like, oh my God, I've overdrawn. I could have walked off the track and survived. Right. Nobody was like chasing me. I wasn't being hunted.
Yep.
It was purely optional.
Yep.
So here we were doing this thing, super optional, super discomforting, super uncomfortable, and we finished it. And so then I think back to what Courtney Dauwalter said after her last 100-mile finish, which depending on when you record this might be, it might be UTMB, might be, Western States, etc. Who knows what that last 100-miler is? Hard Rock. She said the more time you spend in the pain cave, the bigger it gets. So my interpretation of that is the more you do hard things, the more you can do hard things. And that's the truth. That's the reality in life, but also in running, but also in life. Right. So I apply that same learning to what I do for work and how I, host my podcast and discussions in relationships and with family and friends, and like going into conversations equipped to be uncomfortable. Right. So like the week after I did that race, I had some uncomfortable conversations with a variety of people, and I felt like I was pretty prepared. I was like embracing the discomfort instead of shying away from it. And to me, I've been someone in the past in relationships and the workplace who has avoided conflict and confrontation. I'm a people pleaser. I want everyone to be happy all the time. And so to put myself in the arena, so to speak, of getting uncomfortable and practicing that like very acutely over a 5-minute period or 55K or whatever, enables you to show up in a better way and place in every aspect of life. And to me, that's the point. Like that's how we take this silly endeavor and make it like really meaningful, in addition to sharing it with friends and family and that kind of stuff.
I agree with that. Absolutely. I was on I did a Rambling Runner podcast and he asked me about my 50K. It was so hard. I had a blast. And he's like, how is that even possible? And it's kind of that your pain cave just expanded. It was hard. I'm not even gonna kid it. There was times where I probably used some choice words out on the trails, but I got through it and I had a blast. And I'm not like, oh, I'm never doing ultra again. It is one of those things that it is, you keep stretching that pain cave, and then afterwards you're like, that wasn't as bad as I thought, in that moment. So now I do have
Totally.
a question for you. You wore the Puma on the track, but I think you wore a Hoka on the roads. Am I correct with that? The Rocket X2?
Yep.
Now, obviously you have two different factors here. You're up in Boston, so sea level, and you tried a whole brand new shoe, the Rocket X2. Do you think it was the sea level? Do you think it was not much pressure because you're not really with anybody, you're with one person? Do you think it's the shoe? What was it, do you think?
So sea level, there's 7 seconds right there. The reason I didn't, so the fast forward is the fastest shoe I own. I posted a shoe review of that shoe and that was the caption. or the title. The reason I didn't wear that one was because whatever I warmed up in is what I was running in. And um the Rocket is comfortable at 8-minute pace, and it's also comfortable at 5-minute pace. The Fast Forward is not intended for easy effort, and you got to be leaning forward in order for that shoe to feel good. So that's why I chose that. I think the Rocket, that you're holding there, I mean, outside of the Nike Alpha Fly, which is better than every shoe out there, like that is the best, and nothing is close. Um, that shoe is my next favorite, and I like Hoka. I like the people at Hoka. I like the people that they support. And I also really like the Nike 4%, and that Rocket feels the closest to the 4%. The Alpha Fly is like feels different in that it doesn't really feel like a shoe. It feels like a platform with rocket boosters on it. And I've gone through two of those shoes. I didn't have a fresh pair that I could have worn. But yeah, I've had a couple of pairs of the Rockets as well, and I really like that shoe.
Yeah, I love this shoe. I actually did this for my 5K. And the reason why I like this one for specific races versus the Alpha Fly is if you have the corner a lot, this feels better on my ankles. It's
Totally.
a wider base, and my recent 5K was a lot of turns. You know what I mean? And I know because I wore the Vapor Fly for a marathon, and I remember the one turn, I was like, whoa, my ankle kind of was like, what are we doing? We don't like turns here. So that's why, for me personally, like, especially being on the track, doing those turns, I feel like this would be perfect for that, even, that stability and everything like that. So, especially since that Puma shoe looks like a heel to me, and I have bad ankles, and I could just foresee me be like, Cody, no, I'm out of the game. So after one lap.
Yeah, I totally agree. However, it was so aggressively fast that I was like, I have to use this shoe. I wish I did it. I wish I wore that shoe again in Boston on a straightaway. Um,
Be interesting.
it would be interesting. However, yeah, I felt that on the track that was the best option.
And one of the things, because we did talk about maybe I want to go after the 5-minute miler now. I don't think I could do it on a track. I just mentally, I don't think I could do it. But if you give me a straightaway, even if it's an out and back, I think I could do it on a road, not a track. I think there's a 0% chance I get it on a track. On a road, I think I potentially could. And I think there's something to that because I don't have a track background by any means. And most of the training I do is either on the trails or on just like straightaway roads kind of deal. And the thought of getting on a track in front of people just seems like getting in front of an audience naked, pretty much for me.
Totally. So also don't have a track background. I started running when I was 23. So after the race, fortunately David was there, and so he was like, "Let's do it again. Let's do it again." He was so fired up. And he's like, "Find a road, a little bit of downhill in Boston. Find a road with a little bit of downhill, and let's let it rip." And I was like, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to Boston in like 5 days." He's like, "Even better." The problem with Boston is that most of the roads that had a bit of a downhill were like too steep. So he was envisioning like a 50-foot drop over a mile, and there were options for like 100 feet or more, which is like too aggressive for a downhill mile because it just eats up your quads. But I was like, why don't we do this on the track again? And so what he said about doing it on a track a second time is that would be going into the well a little bit, like overdrawing a little bit more because the mental effort involved in the track versus the road for someone who runs the way I do, meaning no track background, and like I really love roads and trails. The I guess challenge of doing it on a track would be unnecessarily high. Um, that being said, there was Heartbreak Hill running club hosted a mile on a track the day after I flew out of Boston. So I was actually pretty bummed that that didn't line up perfectly. It was like almost there, because it would have been really fun to do it in a big atmosphere like that with pacers and whatnot. But yeah, my friend McKenna jumped on a bike and played some Taylor Swift, and we cruised.
I mean, if Shake It Off doesn't get you going for a 1 miler, I don't know what will, or 22. I mean, either one is one of those ones me and my wife will listen to with our daughters, and it definitely gets the house pumping. So is the rim to rim to rim the next challenge for you?
No, so I did that in 2019. My next challenge is a 55K in September in Crested Butte. So the low point is 8,800 feet, and only goes up from there.
So, I mean, are you going to do any elevation work? Because I know when you were in Leadville, you couldn't you were having some issues. You had a headache and things like that. You definitely don't want to be running.
Yeah.
Versus
So
right.
I spend a decent amount of time. So I live at 5,000 feet. I get up to, I can get up to 8,000 feet in a half hour, to start a run, and I perform fine at altitude. I generally don't have a challenge with that. I know my blood work is great thanks to Inside Tracker. So it's not like a physiological limiter for me. The challenge with Leadville, it's so high at 10,000 feet. Like we were sleeping at 10.2. Um, and sometimes it just kicks your ass, right? I go there 4 or 5 times a year, and sometimes it's fine from with sleep, and sometimes it's not, and you never really know what you're gonna get. It was just so dry there, and yeah, I don't know. I was like waking up every 45 minutes for 3 days straight. It was pretty brutal. But Crested Butte, we'll go out Thursday to Carbondale first, which is, I don't know, 1,000 feet higher than Boulder. And then Crested Butte sits at like 8,000 feet or something like that. And that shouldn't be a problem. But yeah, like I do a good amount of training that gets me above 10,000 feet. I'll do a loop called High Lonesome Loop, which puts me above 11,000 feet. On the Continental Divide. So that's pretty awesome. It's like a 40-minute drive from Boulder, for that 15-mile loop. And I'll probably do that as part of my longest long run, which will be early September. But yeah, not terribly concerned about the altitude. I'm more concerned about like getting in enough vert prior. So I'm gonna run a bunch of Mount Sanitas and Green Mountain and those kinds of things where it's like you can get a couple thousand feet, 4,000 feet in like 12, 15 miles, just to get the climbing legs back.
Now, have you put any thoughts on what shoe you might want to rock for this race?
So the Puma Seasons is a pretty good trail shoe. I've been liking that a lot. I also fell in love with the Speed Goat, Hoka Speed Goat. That shoe is awesome. You just have the shoe rack right there, huh?
I got it
Um,
all over the place, man.
yeah. Um, or the Tectons.
Oh,
Do you have those right next to you as well?
I don't have the Tectons right next to me. I got the Mafates next to me, but not the Tectons.
Nice. The Mafates, I call that the grippiest shoe I own. You can straight up run on ice in that shoe and stay upright. It's wonderful. I imagine the Speed Goat is similar, but yeah, it'll be one of those three, depending on. I have to do a little more research on the terrain. If it's gonna be super verty, I won't go with the Tecton, and I'd go with a non-plated trail shoe. If it looks like there's a decently runnable amount, I would go with the Tecton. But still, it's gonna be 34 miles, so I don't know how much like overall running I'll be doing.
Yeah, you'd be surprised
Yeah, probably.
if there's sections where you can take off and run.
Right.
I mean, so I'll be honest with you. I know you really like the goat. I like the goat. I just don't know if I love the goat. I think the next version that I've seen looks freaking awesome. I think this foam got a little outdated, and I think the Profly Plus that they put in the Mafate is just such a huge upgrade for me.
Yeah.
Not a bad shoe. It's just Hoka kind of forgot about this one for this 2023 season, in my opinion.
I I like the Mafate for super technical. Um, Whereas the Speed Goat is good on, yeah. I mean the lugs. I like big lugs, and I cannot lie, but not when I'm trying to rip.
No, I mean, you can even see this thing's muddy. When it's muddy out, this is the shoe like I want on my foot. When it's super
Yep.
tough. Well, we have a in Pennsylvania called Eastern States 100. It is gnarly, some of the steepest climbs out there. I wore this out there, and that was perfect for that. But then there's other ones where like I know I can let it rip, where like I want a little bit of a lighter shoe. I go with that one. So no, I definitely get that. So no, that's awesome. I mean, that's in September, you said, that race?
Yep.
Oh, now one of the cool things, that you started up, you had the podcast, which was fantastic, but you started shoe reviews. You're jumping in the shoe review world. How's that been treating you?
It's good. So it came about because my girlfriend was like, "Do you think you have more than 40 pairs of shoes in the house?" I was like, yeah, I do." And I counted, and I had 42 pairs on that day. And by the time I got my first review up, I had 45 pairs. um,
That is a lot,
so
man.
yeah, I put up about a dozen reviews. I owe a review for the Brooks Hyperion, the new Brooks launch. I tried the Craft road and trail shoe, the trail one, and then the carbon marathon racer. I didn't like them.
Oh, you didn't like the Nordlight Ultra?
Nope.
Really? What about it?
Yeah.
I'm curious. What about
Um, it just I felt like like my foot was in a I don't know, it just like was sunken in. Um, like a little rocky. It didn't feel ideal.
interesting? All right.
And then the back of the carbon shoe, what the carbon plated shoe, the marathoner. Yep, there you go. That the back of that was so stiff for me that I didn't like that.
Yeah, I rocked the Nordlight Ultra. I really enjoy that one for not technical trails, that road to trail. I even used this one at the beach. I thought it was good. I haven't taken this one out yet. I have not, to be honest with you, post 50 or 5K, and I haven't really been training anything, getting the effort to go do a speed workout. I just have not had that
Yep.
ability in me. So definitely something I know, but I did walk around with this one, and I don't always love how they do these types of collars. Other shoes I've
Yeah.
tried, I don't necessarily love it, so I'm a little worried about that.
Yeah. I've also got a pair of the Brooks Cascadia. I can't wait for the new Catamounts to come out. I feel like we get the same shoes.
Yeah,
Yep, you got that right there.
yeah, the cat
Um,
is a nice
I
one.
love
The previous version was okay.
yeah,
The reason why I liked the previous version was because I got the Louis Gong edition, and that was freaking sweet. He had like a Sasquatch that he drew, and the tree bark, and yeah, I mean the Louis Gong
yeah,
version was fantastic. But I am excited for this one.
nice. Another shoe I've been loving on trails is the Scarpa Spin Planet. So I was invited to a PR event here in Boulder. Scarpa is I believe it's Italian or
Yep.
definitely European brand that with roots in climbing and skiing. And they have like 15 trail shoes also. So their quiver of like aggressive to transition to road is a huge gradient. Um, and so I tried this shoe. It's like mostly recycled materials, which is why they call it the Spin Planet. It's this color blue that I freaking love also. And I ran on it on Marshall Mesa, which is like both super rocky and runnable in different places. And I just like didn't feel the shoe at all. And so I said to their marketing guy, I was like, I didn't feel it at all. I love this. Um, so I've been weaving that into some runs. I ran in that in Leadville recently as well on like smooth buttery single track that also had some techie sections. But yeah, it's cool to be able to like try all these different shoes. And my whole thing is like I don't know what all the words mean, upper and these types of foams. And so my shtick with the shoe review is a minute or less, um, no jargon, and I'll tell you what I like, I'll tell you what I don't like, and I'll tell you when I use the shoe and what the price is. And so it's like Yep, I love this one. It's $160. I use it here, et cetera, et cetera. And it's, it's working well, and people are motivated to check it out. And yeah, I think the shoe review thing is interesting because I saw a Trail Mix article that was like, do we need more shoe reviewers? Probably not. Like, talk about the most saturated thing
Yeah,
out there.
yes and
Um,
yes and no, because I do think we bring in a new perspective. So I do shoe reviews as well. I do that 1 minute shoe review, which I found folks liked it a little bit better than maybe some of the long content. I did like a analysis because my real life job is data analysis, and people said like I just skip to the end, and I was like, oh, why don't I just go to it? And I don't even do like I liked it, I didn't like it. I give it a buy or don't buy. And like I don't play in the middle. There's really no middle ground for me. It's gotta
right.
like it or I don't like it. Or I
Yeah,
give a caveat to why I think if you have wide feet, don't buy this. You know what I mean? Kind of deal. So but one of the reasons why I got into the shoe reviews, besides having a lot of shoes and really loving it, was I bought a shoe once because a reviewer said they absolutely loved it, and I hated it. And I remember reading them and I was like, "Well, dude, like I hated it." And he's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't really like it either, but I kind of with the relationship we have with the company, I didn't want to piss them off since we gave them previously bad reviews." And I was like, man, that sucks. Like, I hate that. And for me personally, I never get compensated. They send me shoes, but that's about it. I don't get paid, like nothing like that. So like that was one thing for me when I got into it. I was like, I won't take money, and I will be completely honest with you. Even if the company never sends me shoes again, I'd rather have no shoes than telling people to go spend $160 on a shoe. It was okay, So that's
totally.
why I got into it.
I feel similarly. I've done partnerships with Puma and have taken money from them, and as part of some of these projects around Boston and the mile, etc. Um, and so take what I say about the Puma shoes with a grain of salt if you must, but I do like them. And everything else has been unpaid. Is that true? Yeah, it's been unpaid. I mean, Hoka sends me tons of shoes, and Brooks sends tons of shoes, and um it's appreciated. And if I'm posting a review, it's because I like the shoe. I posted one with one of the Skechers shoes that they sent me, and I was like, yeah, I ran in this shoe and turned it to Meb. Loved it. And now it's like the most popular shoe review I've done yet. Haven't actually run in that shoe. Um, but it's everything's tainted, right? Everything, even you're getting them for free. And if you say bad things about them, like, are they going to continue to send them? And so it's like such a fine line between an honest review and like a truly honest review. And so I hope that um as more people watch these shoe reviews, we can continue to, remain um as unbiased as possible. But if I truly like don't like a shoe, you'll either know, yeah, you'll definitely know. Like those craft
Yeah.
shoes, and it hurts me because I'm good friends with I'm friendly with the PR people, and I love what they're doing, and I love the athletes that they support. And some people love those shoes. I don't. Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, on that note, you probably will do a great review for that one, and I won't.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's as long as you're staying true to yourself. It's because there have been shoes where I absolutely politely kind of dogged, like the shoe just wasn't great. I walked back on the trails barefoot and I had people like DMing me and be like, "You're out of your mind. What's wrong with you?" And I'm like, I don't know. My feet hated the shoe. I apologize. But I said, especially now that the shoe prices are so high, dude. Like the cost of a shoe that you could get a nice shoe for $110. Now it's like 160 is the minimum, it feels like these days. So
Yeah.
so you
Well,
know,
just try and smash that FTLR code in the coupon box on every website. I'm just kidding. It doesn't work anywhere.
uh-huh.
Actually, except Puma.
Except for Puma.
Well, it's I think for the long run.
Okay. There you go. People go get your Pumas. So I actually have some Pumas coming, so I'm excited for that. So I
Nice.
did dog one of their shoes and they still are sending me stuff. So it was the Nitro, Deviant Nitro 2.
You
Uh
didn't like that?
oh, I hated that shoe.
Oh man,
It hurt my feet.
I love that one. You know what has a plate in it?
What's that?
It has a plate in it.
No, hurt my feet. I could feel the plate. I did
Huh.
speed workouts and my foot was in so much pain. It was like one
Wow.
of the only carbon plated shoes that like really just killed my foot.
So I ran in that shoe and I was like, wow, every time I run in this shoe, I feel really fast and awesome. I wonder why. And then I learned that there was a plate in it.
You just thought you were getting so much faster. You're like, wow, I'm the man.
I was like, whatever they did to this shoe is wonderful. I thought it was just a regular trainer with nice foam or something, but yeah, that one was nice.
All right. So I'm gonna ask you. So I don't usually ever have shoe reviewers on the pod that much. So favorite shoe of 2023 so far. You only give me
Fa-
one. You can be
Favorite
a road and a trail shoe if you prefer.
favorite shoe of 2023.
Mhm.
Oh man, I run in so many shoes in 2023. Um, okay, it's either the Rocket
Okay.
or again, biased, but this is the truth. It's Puma did this first mile collab with I'm gonna butcher it. I don't know what it is. The first mile something. I kind of want to look it up now, but it's this like recycled. There's a lot of 20% recycled material in the shoe, and it ran like the Pegasus.
Hmm.
And I loved the Peg 34, and this is the only shoe that's ever felt close to that one. I went through 10 pairs of the Peg 34. That's not a joke. I like when it got to the 35, I was like, I hate this shoe, and I bought like 6 more. Um, and so this shoe felt like that, except what I did was I somehow fucked up the heel, and it was like folded in, and so now it's like remarkably uncomfortable to run in. So I probably only have 100 miles on the shoe, but I almost never choose it because the heel is bent in. Also because it's in Boston,
Wow.
so it's kind of far away. Um, but so that, and then the Tecton is up there with my favorite trail shoe.
I definitely like the Rockets, definitely up there. But actually, weirdly enough, the Clifton. I never would have guessed the Clifton, but that was one of
Huh,
my favorites to run in. So nothing crazy. Just I need something, especially when I'm doing a lot of trail running. Just a good daily trainer for the roads. So
nice.
least favorite shoe.
Least favorite shoe.
Shoe
Oof,
you just didn't like.
we're gonna light it up. That it's got to be
The craft.
the Craft
Oh,
Carbon Racer.
oh man, the speed one, the white one.
Yep.
All right, nothing wrong
I'm
with
trying to think if there were any other shoes my problem is I like everything. And
that.
so if I don't like my coworker calls me a golden retriever, and she's like, you are the worst person to interview people because you like everyone. But if you don't like someone, it's a huge red flag.
That's good to know. My least favorite shoe, and I wanted to love it. So because I'm only talking about 2023, the Hyperion from Brooks.
Oh, I love that shoe.
The not I like the Hyperion Max. I didn't like the Hyperion. It was too low stack for me. I used it building up to my 5K, and the workout I felt okay. The next day I felt completely trashed. My legs just were not feeling the lower stack.
So
And it's
are
a
you are you used to doing workouts in carbon shoes now? So that's probably why, because that shoe doesn't have a plate, but it's just like a fast, low profile shoe. I
but
like that shoe. Yeah, go ahead.
was gonna say, but I did like the Topo Cyclone too, which was a low stack. That one I felt fast in it. I loved when my legs felt afterwards during it. I don't know. It's just something about the Hyperion. I was so excited for it. And I took it out for one run. I was like, okay, I gotta break it in. And then I did a 4x400, like a mile warm up, 4x400, and then a mile afterwards. And I just like my legs felt so trashed. And then I had to do
Huh.
another. I did like a 4x800, and I was like, man, my legs are just dang tired. So
I noticed that too, but I think that's because we're so used to running workouts in carbon.
no, I'm a baby. I mean, I'm used to the higher stack shoes. So I caveat that if you love lower stack and you like those good old days of the racer, like that shoe might be for you.
The
Uh,
Hyperion Tempo is a great shoe too.
yeah, it is. I like the tempo a lot. So, but it's gone.
It's gone.
Hyperion Tempo, yeah.
Oh, what the hell?
They replaced it with the Hyperion Max and the Hyperion.
Well, they need to leave something in the middle.
They apparently didn't. So they were like, screwed you guys. This is what
No,
we're
I
doing.
like that shoe.
All right. Last one. Biggest surprise for you. Yeah. A shoe that
In what realm? Oh,
you got it and you're like, holy crap, this is amazing, or holy crap, this really sucked.
that Scarpa shoe. I was surprised with how much I loved it. In addition to how good the Puma trail shoe is. Literally every time I wear the Puma trail shoe, someone's like, "Is that legit?"
Well,
100%, 100% of the time.
it's funny because the Puma and everything that, and Eric LaPuma wore it for Worlds, and I was like, dude, you gotta be honest with me, like, and she's like, dude, the grip actually is Puma grip is
It's
freaking
really good.
because at first I was like, did you really take a Puma shoe? And he's like, no joke, it's an awesome shoe. And I was like, all right, all right. I mean, you're that quality of runner. I gotta trust you if you're saying the shoe's good, you know.
So Hayden Hawks reached out to me. He's like, "Hey, my buddy Eric LaPuma was wondering if you had any connections in the shoe space." I was like, um, you have to, he has to work with Puma with his last name.
Oh,
So I connected them, and so he was testing out some shoes, and he's like, "Man, these are actually really good shoes." And so yeah, he wore that shoe for the 100K. And hopefully he's got something good cooking with them for next year.
wow, he signed with Terex, man.
Oh, wait, what?
Eric LaPuma with
Oh,
Terex. They just dropped
how
it
did I?
the other day. I'm sorry.
Oh man,
They missed the moment. Puma with LaPuma, you know? So
bummer.
I know. I think Puma missed out on that one getting a stud because I think he's gonna have a good CCC. I'm also biased because I like Eric, so I'll admit that one. So I'll be honest with the biggest surprise shoe for me, Brooks Ghost Max. This
That
shoe,
is a chunky looking shoe.
I'm telling you, I'm about to chunk right now. It's really nice. You know, give me some stack and I'm good to go. And it's only a 6 millimeter drop. This shoe, hands down, my favorite Brooks shoe 2023. And it
When do you run in that?
what's that? Easy runs, easy daily runs, recovery runs, and also the daily runs where I'm in the eights. Feel great in this show. This
Do you do
foam,
any doubles?
no, I don't do doubles. I'm not that cool.
I was
Sorry.
gonna say that looks like a good double shoe.
But I'm telling you, this shoe, this foam, it's DNA Loft version 2, which I kind of was not excited for. I was like, oh, really going with that one? But it's awesome. And if you like the Caldera trail shoe from Brooks, I think it's a Caldera, it's pretty much the same shoe.
Oh, cool.
In my personal opinion, because they shouldn't have called it a Ghost. They should have changed the name completely. This feels like one of their trail shoes. The stack, I even put them together, and I was to my wife, I was like, Emily, what, don't these look alike, just different lugs? And she was like, it looks like the same shoe, and it really does. Like it's
Huh.
so we're again definitely a shoe, a huge surprise to me because Brooks has been good, and I love working with Brooks, but this one just blew my expectations out of the waters.
Cool.
So yeah, but yeah, so that's definitely the ones. And I one shoe I'm really looking forward to, and I think the world is now that we have the Ultra Fly out, we need a Adidas to give us their super shoe for the trails.
Is that one coming?
It is UTMB week. It's that pink shoe, Tom Evans. I think it's pink. It might be red. I'm not 100% sure. Sometimes when you're looking at pictures, I'm a little colorblind to that. It's the one Tom Evans rocked at States and won.
Oh, cool.
So apparently that one's coming out, and I'm excited for that one. So
Sweet.
I know. So, but I definitely taken up a lot of your time. I probably could talk a couple more hours about shoes. Before I let you go, is there anything you want to plug? Plug your podcast, anything like that?
Yeah, check out the podcast. It's called For the Long Run. I'm curious one thing about you. Where did your interest in all these shoes come from?
Yeah, so I always loved fashion and style and everything like that. My family used to always make fun of me because of how much I loved the fashion industry in the world. Um, and I got into running during the pandemic, and I just really started really enjoying the running shoes. And somebody talked me into doing a Making the Marathoner kind of series, and I had no idea about IG. I'm making this up as I go. And Adidas actually was the first company reached out and said, "Hey, we want to give you a pair of shoes for making the marathoner." Like, and I got that first taste of it, and I was like, "This is awesome! Like, this is so cool." And then I just enjoyed making videos. And so my other job, I work in data and analytics, and I'm a manager over there. And I started doing these videos, and I found this creativity that I really loved. It really was something I just generally love doing. If I never make money off of this, perfectly fine with it. I just truly love it. I love talking about shoes. I love talking about running. And it actually made my other job a whole lot better because I wasn't trying to force creativity in a job that didn't need
Oh.
creativity. I was getting project plans. I was like, guys, we could do something really cool when you didn't really need to
You
do
don't need
something
to.
cool. So it just opened up a whole other, you know, spot in my mind and my brain. And like I said, I really love talking about shoes. And it originally started with I ran for the Rad Rabbit group, and we were just chatting here and there with people. And like I guess, and then the free trial group, and I was like always putting things on the gear. And then someone was like, "You should just do it. Just make a video. Just do it." And I made one, and it's probably. And I look back at it now, and I'm like, "Man, what was I doing?" And then I just kept making another one. But I also realized, for me personally, I need to do what works with my time schedule. So 1 minute shoe reviews, shorter videos, things like that work with my schedule, so that I can continue to do these without feeling super stressed. So.
Cool. Love it.
Man, I appreciate it. Well, I definitely appreciate you joining the pod. And definitely, like, again, can't wait to talk about UTMB and see what other type of drama you start around that race, man.
Okay. Because you went there.
Oh,
What he's talking
I had
what
to.
he's talking about is the backlash that UTMB got a month after the announcement that Dacia, an SUV company that is currently focused on promoting electric vehicles in Europe at an affordable cost, got relate from a bunch of athletes who were or were not racing UTMB, including some that got injured and then said that they weren't running UTMB. So a little confusing there. But my point was that first of all, trail running is not in a place to not take more money. And having non-endemic sponsors get into the sport is good for everyone, unless it's like Chevron and
Yeah.
they're greenwashing their sports marketing efforts. However, I still think that there is a way that Chevron or Mobil could sponsor races and like figure out a way to like, you know, donate a bunch of money to XYZ and they would build goodwill, et cetera, et cetera. This is not the case there. This is a company that sells SUVs, and many of those SUVs are electric vehicles. As I drove into the outward bound uh, aid station on dirt in my SUV that I purchased so that I could sleep in it at trail races and drive it into mountains with snow, I thought about the fact that how smart it is that an SUV company is catering to trail runners, because if you looked in my trunk, it was totally full. And I was here, there was driving on dirt off road with enough ground clearance to do so safely and comfortably. And I was like, I don't understand why people are so up in arms about this, right? Okay, so you have now you got me going. So you have people who are getting mad that a sponsor who sells a product that contributes carbon emissions into the world is sponsoring a trail race, and they're trying to connect with people who are perfectly fit for making that purchase. These same people who are up in arms about this sponsorship are flying all over the world to UTMB and not looking at personal responsibility. By the way, personal responsibility is a tiny percent of what contributes to climate change. If you look at, I was having this conversation with Zoe. She's like, 70 companies contribute 90% of the emissions in the world. So instead of focusing on like the margins, which are our contribution to climate change, we should perhaps go after those companies and refocus the efforts and outrage that we're, a bunch of keyboard warriors are targeting a bunch of athletes. Like, come on. I'm
I,
going to take some heat from this, but I firmly believe that it is a colossal waste of energy and effort, pun intended, to go after something like this when there are much bigger fish to fry.
I don't necessarily disagree with you, especially I think the problem is it's UTMB that did it. and
Right.
every
Everyone likes to pile on UTMB,
yeah,
and that's easy to do.
easy target. And I'm so like the biggest issue for me is like they're targeting UTMB, and I said this like, okay, so if they pull out the contract, that's a lot of money to dissolve a contract. Like UTMB is not going to front that bill. Who's fronting that bill? I mean, if
The
you all
runners.
runners will be. So now you're just hurting these pro runners that, let's be honest with you, some of them are making really good money from their sponsor. Most of them are not. Most of them are not making a lot of money. That's why a lot of them still have actual jobs. You know what I mean? So winning a UTMB, getting that money, while some people go, well, it's only $10,000, 10,000. You know, or would you rather save the world? Like I don't know, 10,000. If you had told me I had to put food on my kid's table, I'm gonna choose the food on my kid's table. Like I hate saying that. I know that sounds, but like seriously, Tom Evans even said at the one podcast, he's like, "This is my livelihood. Like this is how I make my money. This is how I feed my family." Like you're not understanding it. Like and having a sponsor like that could lead to maybe like you look at the Boston Marathon winner gets $100,000. What if a UTMB winner got $100,000? That means taking on bigger sponsors than a Camelback. No offense, Camelback, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Bigger.
and so my pursuit in so the podcast is not my full-time job, so it gives me so I don't rely on it for income, and yet I'm driving income from the podcast. And so it gives me the ability to try and reach non-endemic brands as sponsors. I've been pushing hard with Audi and Hertz and United Airlines in particular, because that trio, they are very clear. They all contribute to carbon emissions, but they are all pushing for electric vehicles. And then people are like, oh, but look at the process required to get the materials for the battery. You literally can't win with some people. Electric vehicles are cleaner, and there are brands that are promoting a climate forward approach. You look at like what Hertz did with Tom Brady. Tom Brady's repping Hertz,
Oh,
the greatest athlete of all time. Just kidding. Shout out to Courtney DeWalter, um, greatest football player, greatest quarterback. Anyway, my Boston roots are showing. Um,
I'm okay with you saying that because I still have Brandon Graham stripping the ball from Tom Brady and the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, so it's okay.
totally. I did some business with Kevin Boss uh, a couple of years ago, and it took everything in me to like not talk about the Giants and Patriots. Anyway, um, so my point is like these brands have hundreds of millions of dollars to spend on marketing, and they're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing. Trail runners are the same demographic as golf and tennis and these high-end sports, and there's an opportunity for the brands to see that. So Mazda has been sponsoring Emily Abade. She's been doing some campaigns there. I've seen Ford with Myrna Valerio and Corey Waltering and a couple of other athletes. I've seen Subaru is doing stuff. So it's happening. We may as well take advantage of that and be at the forefront of driving interesting sponsors into the sport, getting more money into the sport. I mean, like I worked with a solar company, and I could talk about this stuff all day, so cut me off if I need to. But like I worked with a solar company and drove $350,000 in revenue for them from an audience who is interested in environmental and sustainable options. And we put solar on a dozen people's roofs, and that's not a lot of people, but that's a lot of money, and they paid me 20 grand on that. And so that enabled me to do my podcast for a number of months.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it's going to be interesting. I'm curious to see if at UTMB there's any type of protest or anything like that. I hope not. It definitely would take away from it. I know people feel strongly about that, and I get it. Save the world, I'm all for it. You know what I mean? But I think there's different ways to do it. And like I said, I think this is a step in the right direction. I mean, we'll see though. But I also hope this doesn't scare other well, we don't want that type of publicity. You know what I mean? Nobody wants negative publicity from people.
That's
So
not negative publicity. That's wonderful publicity for them. Do you know how many people learned about them as a
Dave,
sustain as a brand,
I
period?
had no idea who they were. So when people were up in arms with it, I had to Google it, and I was like, "What is this? Is this like a clothing brand? Is this like
Right.
a
No,
H and
they're
M
the big
like kind of
they're the
deal?"
big winners of this outrage.
With that. So we'll see. I mean, I still want to see Subaru. I would love to see Courtney Subaru. I think that would be
Totally. Yeah.
so. But yeah, like I said, definitely go check out Jonathan's podcast. It's fantastic. It definitely gives you chills. There are some runs though when I listen to it. Yeah, I wish I had some tissues. So some of the stories get a little too get the heartstrings going. So, but definitely appreciate you joining it, and definitely, like I said, keep out for the new adventures coming the way.
Cool. We'll see you out there.